Asterisk Jimin bit back a moan as Jungkook's breath ghosted across his skin, sending a shiver down his spine. He could feel his resolve crumbling with every passing second, every word that left the other man's lips like a poison and a promise. Asterisk his body was on fire, every nerve ending crackling with need and desire. The way Jungkook had him trapped against the wall was both terrifying and exhilarating. Asterisk he didn't want to give in. He couldn't. I won't, he muttered through gritted teeth. I'm not gonna break. Asterisk Jungkook laughed again, that same dark, seductive sound that made Jimin's stomach flip. He could see the way the other man was trying and failing to hold onto his resistance, the way his body trembled and his breath hitched with every touch. Asterisk he loved how close Jimin was to breaking, how his denial was a flimsy facade that barely concealed the heat and desire bubbling just beneath the surface. You're so damn stubborn, he whispered, lips skimming along the line of Jimin's jaw. Jimin's breath caught as Jungkook's lips trailed along the sensitive skin of his jaw, heat coursing through him with every brush of contact. It was too damn much. The way his body was responding so eagerly, despite his desperate attempts to hold back. Asterisk he tried to come up with a snarky comeback, but the words died in his throat. Instead, a soft whimper slipped out, betraying just how close he was to unraveling completely. Say that again, Jimin whispered, his voice breaking slightly as Jungkook's words sank in. The way he was touching him, so confidently, so possessively, was driving him insane. He hated how much he wanted it, hated how good it felt, but deep down, a small part of him just wanted to give in. Jungkook could see the moment Jimin's resistance started to crack, the tiny flutter of his pulse under his jaw, the slight tremor in his hands, the way his breath hitched when Jungkook's thumb brushed over sensitive skin. Asterisk he leaned in close again until their lips were almost touching. You're begging me, without even saying a word. Asterisk Jimin was caught off guard by Jungkook's words, the way he seemed so damn confident that he had him completely under his control. He hated how right he was. Asterisk he closed his eyes for a moment, taking deep, measured breaths as he tried to regain his composure. You're right about one thing, he said, his voice low and steady, despite the way his body still thrummed with heat. I haven't begged yet. Raised an eyebrow, a sly smile playing at the corners of his lips, to see the other man go from trembling under his touch to regaining his composure so quickly sparked a sense of curiosity in him. Asterisk he took a small step back, giving Jimin some space, but his eyes remained fixed on him, curious and intense. Oh, he drawled, leaning against the wall with one shoulder. And what exactly would make you beg, princess? Asterisk Jimin straightened slowly, rolling his shoulders back, as if shedding the heat that had gripped him moments ago. The fire in his eyes cooled into something sharper, calculating, controlled. He fixed Jungkook with a slow, dangerous smile. You want to know what makes me beg? Asterisk he murmured, stepping forward until he was close enough to feel Jungkook's breath on his skin, but didn't touch him. Asterisk it's not your hands, not your mouth. Asterisk he tilted his head slightly, voice dropping to a velvet whisper Asterisk. It's the moment you realize I've already won. Then, before Jungkook could react, he turned on his heel and walked away without another word. Asterisk. Calm, collected, victorious, Jungkook was left standing, stunned and speechless, as he watched Jimin walk away, calm, collected, and completely unruffled, as if nothing had happened. In the first place, he was still trying to process the sudden shift in the dynamic, the way the tables had been turned so damn fast. He was used to being in control, calling the shots. But Jimin had just flipped the script on him, and he'd done it so goddamn effortlessly. It was infuriating, and also, if he was being honest, incredibly hot. Asterisk. Jungkook watched as Jimin's figure disappeared around the corner, a mixture of anger and grudging respect coursing through him. He couldn't shake the image of Jimin standing there with that smug smile, so goddamn confident, despite the fact that only moments ago he'd been trembling under his touch. Asterisk. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration boiling inside him. Asterisk. God damn it. This wasn't over. Asterisk. Jimin walked away with a smirk still tugging at his lips. He could still feel the echoes of Jungkook's touch, the heat of the other man's body pressed up against him. But he wouldn't let him get the satisfaction of watching him come apart. Asterisk. He knew Jungkook's ego was bruised after that unexpected move, and he couldn't help but feel a perverse kind of pleasure at the idea of him stewing in that anger, unable to get what he'd wanted. Asterisk. He couldn't wait to see how Jungkook would retaliate. Asterisk. Asterisk. As Jimin disappeared around the corner, Jungkook's mind was racing. He couldn't shake the feeling of being outplayed, and he didn't like it one bit. Asterisk. He hated losing control, and the fact that Jimin had just walked away like it was nothing, leaving him standing there with his pride bruised, was infuriating. Asterisk. He let out a frustrated breath and clenched his jaw, the gears in his head already grinding. Asterisk. Game on, sweetheart. Asterisk. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, a slow smirk tugging at his lips as he stared down the empty hallway where Jimin had disappeared. The sting of being outplayed still burned, but instead of anger, something else began to simmer beneath his skin. Asterisk. He liked challenges. Asterisk. And Jimin. He was the most dangerous game yet. Running away now. Asterisk. He murmured to himself, voice low and dark with promise. That's cute. Asterisk. A beat passed before he pushed off the wall and straightened his jacket, eyes narrowing. But you can't win a war by walking out of one. Asterisk. He turned on his heel, already plotting how he'd make Jimin come crawling back, with fire in every step. Asterisk. Jimin stood by the dimly lit window of his private suite, one hand loosely gripping a glass of whiskey, the ice clinking faintly as he swirled it. Outside, the city glittered like broken glass, cold and beautiful. Asterisk. He could still feel Jungkook's hands on him, his voice in his ear, the way he'd nearly lost control. Asterisk. And yet, he smiled slowly into the reflection on the glass. Asterisk. I won. Asterisk. A soft knock came at the door. Boss. Asterisk. Asterisk. His second in command said. Asterisk. We have intel on Jungkook's next shipment, going through Incheon in 2 days. Asterisk. Jimin took a slow sip, savoring the burn down his throat before setting the glass down. Good. Asterisk, he turned toward the door. Eyes sharp now. No trace of that earlier fire left. Let's make sure it never arrives. Asterisk, the game wasn't over. Asterisk, it had only just begun. Asterisk, Jungkook sat in the back of a dark-tinted SUV, fingers tapping idly on the armrest as he scanned the city skyline through the window. The events of that night played over and over again in his mind. The way Jimin had looked, the way he had felt in his arms, the goddamn audacity of him. And each thought only fueled the anger simmering inside him. Asterisk, his mind was racing a mile a minute. He knew Jimin wouldn't just disappear after that little stunt he pulled. But he also knew that the other man had just declared metaphorical war. Asterisk, Jungkook smirked, his lips curling into a slow, dangerous smile as he finally stopped tapping and leaned back into the seat. The city lights blurred past the window, painting shadows across his face. Let him try. Asterisk, he murmured, quiet but firm. Asterisk, asterisk. Because when I find that shipment first, I'll make sure it's not just gone. Asterisk, he pulled out his phone, already typing with cold precision. Redirect all coastal patrols. Monitor every dock under Incheon, and get me eyes on Jimin's men. They move an inch. I want to know. A beat passed before he added, with quiet venom, next time he runs, he won't walk away smiling. Jimin sat in the darkened corner of a private bar, nursing a half-empty glass of whiskey, as he listened idly to the low jazz music playing over the sound system. His second-in-command sat across him, filling him in on the latest information they'd gathered on Jungkook's next move. And yet, even as he listened, his mind kept drifting back to that moment with Jungkook, the heat in his body, his breath against his. He took another slow sip, trying to shake the thought away. Jimin set the glass down with a quiet clink, the ghost of Jungkook's touch still lingering like a phantom on his skin. He closed his eyes for a brief second, just long enough to collect himself. Tell me, he said, voice smooth and controlled, did we get confirmation on the decoy route? His second-in-command nodded. Yes, the shipment moves tomorrow night via Han River under civilian cover. Jungkook won't see it coming. A faint smirk tugged at Jimin's lips. Good, he stood slowly, adjusting his coat with effortless grace. Let him chase ghosts. I'll be where he least expects me, because this wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about making Jungkook feel exactly what he felt tonight, wanted, undone, and left wanting more. Jungkook sat in his penthouse office, the city skyline glittering like a sea of stars. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, his eyes flickered between two computer screens, surveillance cameras scanning the docks under Incheon. He'd been watching the screens all night, waiting, but there was still no sign of the shipment. A low growl spilled out as he clenched his jaw, knuckles turning white as he clenched his hands into fists. The longer he waited, the more his frustration built, and the more he remembered that look in Jimin's eyes as he walked away. Jimin stood at the top of Han River's abandoned pier, the night air cool against his skin, as he watched a nondescript cargo van roll silently into position. The sound of lapping water masked their movements clean, precise. No mistakes. His phone buzzed once in his pocket, a single message from an encrypted line. He's chasing shadows at Incheon. A slow smile curled on Jimin's lips as he lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his sharp features. Let him burn through fuel and men, he murmured to himself. While I take what's mine, he exhaled a long stream of smoke into the night sky, calm, victorious, and already thinking ahead, because winning wasn't just about power. It was about making JIKOOK feel helpless for once, and that was priceless. JIKOOK's phone buzzed with a single encrypted message from his trusted source. No shipment at Incheon. Intel was false. He played you. He stared at the screen, his jaw clenching so hard it ached. The words burned into his vision. Played you. There was no anger, no shouting, just cold, simmering silence as he slowly set the phone down on his desk. Then he stood up, walking over to the floor-to-ceiling window and staring out at the city lights below. Clever, he murmured. Real clever. Jimin. A small, dangerous smile tugged at his lips. But two can play that game. He reached for his coat. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. Jimin took another long drag on the cigarette, the smoke dancing around him in wisps as he listened to the sounds of the river, the faint rumble of traffic carried along the breeze. Otherwise, it was quiet, peaceful, calm, until, that is, a quiet, low thump came from behind him, the sound of footsteps. He stayed still for a moment, his hand slipping into his jacket as he turned to face the newcomer. The moment Jimin turned, the wind shifted, carrying not just the scent of river water and smoke, but something sharper beneath it, expensive cologne. JIKOOK stepped out from the shadows at the edge of the pier, his hands tucked casually into his coat pockets. His tie was loose, hair slightly tousled, like he'd been running through hell to get here.